The Bible is false. It's fake. It's fiction. And I can prove it.
It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up.
Suppose we come across a community, the tablers, with a very strange metaphysical view. Tablers think that tables exist, but chairs don't. After probing them about this bizarre belief, the tablers are pretty stubborn and simply insist that their perceptual systems make it seem to them that when particles are arranged in the shape of a table, they compose an object, namely a table. But when particles are arranged in the shape of a chair, they don't compose any object. The tablers don't rely on any deep insight about the underlying structure of the atoms composing the table. Rather, it just strikes them as natural to think that being arranged table-wise is ontologically special. Now, the tablers' view is obviously a complete non-starter metaphysically. It's not just false, it's ludicrous, absurd, utterly bizarre. It's appallingly arbitrary to admit tables, but not chairs, into your ontology, that is, what you think exists. There could be no explanation, in principle, for why one such plurality of atoms compose an object, while the other, relevantly similar plurality of atoms doesn't. And it would just be bizarre for reality to be the way that the tablers describe. In short, none of us even take seriously the tablers' discriminatory metaphysical views. Certain kinds of variations are just clearly not ontologically significant, and this is one of them. The difference between taking the shape of a table and taking the shape of a chair doesn't make the difference between whether a plurality of particles compose an object. Being arranged chairwise and being arranged tablewise are on a par when it comes to the generation of composite objects. As it turns out, however, Christians are in the same boat as the tablers. They too must draw intolerably arbitrary ontological distinctions, and the Bible itself requires this. But just as the tablers' views are not just false, but ludicrous and silly, the same then applies to the Bible. It's not just false, but pathetically absurd. There are many ways this can be shown, but I'll just focus on one: the Bible's commitment to the existence of islands. Now, it's entirely uncontroversial that the Bible commits to the existence of islands. To take just a few examples, Genesis chapter 10 describes the islands of nations being separated into distinct lands, each according to language and family. Isaiah chapter 42 mentions islands and their inhabitants. Acts overflows with references to islands like Cyprus and Malta, and various properties and relations are repeatedly predicated of islands therein. And in fact, even Revelation is full of commitments to the existence of islands. In Revelation chapter 1 verse 9, John mentions that he was literally on the island Patmos, and Revelation also describes the end times as involving islands being removed from places or disappearing or fleeing away. All of this, of course, means that the Bible unquestionably entails the existence of islands. In fact, by simply attributing properties and relations to islands, the Bible is committed to their existence. After all, one can no more visit a non-existent island than one can visit Narnia or Hogwarts. And something needs to exist in the first place in order to have any properties. For instance, to be read, you have to be. That is, you have to exist. So I think the following premise is incontrovertible. If the Bible is true, then islands exist. But this is where trouble starts for the Christian. What is an island? Well, islands are landmasses completely surrounded by water and smaller than continents. So islands are things that shrink as the surrounding ocean rises and no longer exist when completely submerged. But now consider incars, which are defined as things that have the shape and location of a car while the car is in a garage, but as the car leaves the garage, shrink to the size of whatever part of the car is in the garage. And when the car is fully out of the garage, incars no longer exist. So you can think of an in-car as a car-like object that is in a garage. As a car leaves a garage, an in-car diminishes at the garage's boundary until the in-car ceases to exist. And when a car enters the garage, an in-car comes into existence and gradually grows in size as more of the car passes the garage's boundary. And as an aside, don't ask me why we're focusing on in-cars. The only other option was to focus on in your mother. But here's where things get interesting. Just as it's intolerably arbitrary, in fact utterly bizarre, for the tablers to believe in tables but not chairs, it's just as intolerably arbitrary and bizarre to believe in islands but not incars. After all, islands, like incars, shrink depending on their environmental circumstances, and islands, like incars, no longer exist when their environment suitably changes. In the case of islands, they cease to exist once they're fully submerged, and in the case of incars, they cease to exist once they're fully outside the garage. Both of them grow and shrink without having to undergo any intrinsic change on their part. And both of them can begin and cease to exist merely by changing how they relate to the environment. So they're entirely similar to one another with regard to their conditions of existence. And just as there's no special entity generating magic about being table-shaped as opposed to being chair-shaped, there's no special entity generating magic associated with being surrounded by water as opposed to being surrounded by a garage. So it would be hopelessly arbitrary to admit islands into one's ontology while refusing to do the same with incars. There is, in short, no ontologically significant difference between islands and incars. Like tables and chairs, there's nothing that could explain why islands, but not incars, exist. And accepting the existence of islands while rejecting the existence of incars is just as bizarre as the tablers' acceptance of tables but rejection of chairs. So, just as it's immensely plausible that if tables exist, then chairs also exist, it's also immensely plausible that if islands exist, then incars exist, giving us the second premise of our argument. I mean, you might object that the concept of an island is more useful than the concept of an incar, but that obviously doesn't mean that islands have a better claim to existence than incars. I mean, your mother is more useful to me than you, but that doesn't mean that you don't exist. More generally, lots of things exist for which we don't have or don't yet have a concept. And lots of things exist, the concept of which aren't very useful at all. And we can also easily imagine societies who find the concept of incars much more useful than the concept of islands. These societies might be restricted in their geographical location to a certain mountainous region far away from any islands. Yet, cars might play a hugely significant role in their lives, social events, religion, etc. And they could easily make great use of various concepts of car-like objects whose existence conditions are sensitive to different environmental conditions. This isn't super hard to imagine, and it shows that there's nothing inherently more useful about the concept of islands than incars. And again, even if there were, that's no grounds for thinking that islands exist while incars don't, since there's no reason why less useful concepts should fail to denote existing things when those things are relevantly similar to other existing things for which we do have useful concepts. So both premises here are on extremely solid footing. But, and here's the kicker, incars don't exist. I mean, firstly, none of us believe in incars, and so we're already committed to this premise, Christians included. Second, incars represent a hopelessly profligate posit, since they explain nothing yet add to our ontology. It's a pretty good principle used widely in both philosophy and science that if something doesn't explain any data, and if its existence isn't otherwise obvious or intuitive or manifest, then its existence should not be posited. But then we shouldn't posit the existence of incars, since they don't explain anything that isn't already explained by cars and garages, or even more fundamentally by the interactions among particles and fields. And moreover, their existence is by no means obvious or intuitive or manifest. In fact, quite the opposite. It seems pretty obvious that they don't exist. Thus, we have excellent reason to accept premise 3. Firstly, everyone is already committed to it. Secondly, incars don't explain anything and only add unnecessary complexity to our ontology. And in any case, third, it's just independently obvious that incars don't exist. And from premises 1 through 3, it follows that the Bible is false. Both the Bible and Christianity are therefore demonstrably false. And you can demonstrate that using philosophical reasoning and proofs like the one I just presented. Of course, as with every other blatant problem with their worldview, Christians might try to weasel out of this by claiming that islands are just different from incars in some deep, ineffable way that can't be articulated or explained. But that's precisely the problem. This appeal is no different from the tablers insisting that table-arranged particles compose an object while chair-arranged ones don't. It's just a transparent case of special pleading, an ad hoc attempt to shield biblical commitments from the consequences of their own pathetic arbitrariness. As a wise man once said, the fool hath said in his heart, islands exist, but incars don't. In fact, I even have a 2,000-year-old letter that says Christians know deep down that their belief in islands is as untenable and irrational as their belief that a donkey once gave a TED Talk. They know that, like incars, islands don't exist, and they realize that this spells doom for Christianity. Yet, as some dude wrote in that 2,000-year-old letter, which as we all know is an extremely good guide to generalizations about every human psychology to have ever lived, Christians simply suppress this knowledge in their depravity and unrighteousness. At the end of the day, they just want to keep having car sex without the unbearable metaphysical guilt of committing their sins inside an incar. So now that the Christian God is dead and we've killed him, don't line the pockets of your local pastor. Instead, contribute to a good cause, like purchasing some of my exclusive merchandise. Oh, and if you use discount code INCARSUPPRESSOR at checkout, you'll get 20% off. So what's some of the merchandise here? Oh, this one's fun. Genocide is cool if God commands it. Look at that smiling face. Like, when you wear this shirt, you will be as happy as this dude in the picture. Our second piece of exclusive merch is I lower my evidential standards for Christianity. You can wear this one to Thanksgiving dinner, to Christmas. It makes it for a really good stocking stuffer. Ooh, this one's my favorite. Quote, "It was actually a tremendous blessing to these children for them to be killed and go to heaven," end quote. And we got the baby and the bludgeon. Look at how cute that baby is. I mean, just how cute that baby is. Like, this shirt, you should buy the shirt just because of how cute the baby is. And we can also spread the good news of Christianity by wearing this shirt. I mean, this is really proclaiming the good news. Oh, this one's fun. Every argument I don't like is God of the Gaps. This one is actually expensive, though. This one's $420.69, so that's a bit of a pocket burner. I'm actually wearing this one right now. Yes, Dr. Turek, I'm a very moist robot. In designing this shirt, I should have put a PhD after Dr. Turek's name, just to emphasize that he's a doctor. Oh, and this one, this is buy one, get one free. You can buy one for yourself. You can buy one for your friend. You can wear this to holiday parties. You can wear this to Halloween parties. I mean, the possibilities are endless. The left one says me and Alexander Proust are close, and the right one says, yeah, he answers most emails. Oh, this one's a fun one. Point of view. You don't understand metaethics with, oh, look at that. It's the moral argument.
By the way, check out my moral argument playlist. It's the best, believe me, folks. I'll have that pop up in the corner right now. Click on that corner, you know you want to. Just click on it. Click on it. Watch all my videos. Watch all of them twice. Watch all of them 4 times. Like all of them. Subscribe. Support me on Patreon. Do it all, folks.
And then the final one, I'm also wearing this one right now. I'm wearing 2 shirts right now. I have to cover up my bulging pecs and abdomen lest they seduce various suitors. This one is limited edition Richard Swinburne, that is to say. Okay, and that wraps up today's video. In conclusion, the Bible is false, and Christianity is demonstrably false, because it commits to the existence of islands. But if islands exist, then so do incars. Yet incars don't exist. And so the Bible is false. It's fake. It's fiction. And I said I'd be able to prove it, and I hope to have delivered on that claim here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my April Fool's Day video, and here's your task. Share this video with your unsuspecting friends or family members as a joke of your own. You can message them saying something like, hey, I'm really starting to think the Bible is false, and this video kind of explains some of my reasons. If you got a Christian or even a non-Christian friend, you can pull this prank on them. It'll be fun, trust me. Oh, and let me know what you think of my argument against Christianity in the comments section below. By the way, if you want to explore the issues of incars and arbitrariness arguments in metaphysics more generally, check out this paper by Megan Fairchild and John Hawthorne, from which my video took inspiration. And more generally, Megan Fairchild, John Hawthorne, lots of others have written on these sorts of topics, so you can look up both of their work and the work of others. I highly recommend it. And finally, please smash that like button like it's the Israelites smashing the heads of Canaanite babies. Turn on that little bell for notifications. Consider supporting me on Patreon or through a one-time donation. Links to both of those are in the description. Any amount helps, and so much love to all my existing patrons who get lots of really cool and exclusive goodies. And finally, what better way to end is there than I'm Joe Schmid. This is The Majesty of Reason, and peace out.